Tuning in to the online broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Oh, yeah. Let the buzz begin indeed. Welcome back, folks, for another Red Sox Wrap 360. This is our final Wrap 360 for the Red Sox of the season, as they are all done and they are in the playoffs. We're going to talk a little bit fondly, I guess, about this up and down season of 2015. We're going to look ahead to 2016 and what's in store for the Red Sox this offseason. As usual, I am with the Sultan of the Sabermetrics, Bobby DeMuro. Bobby, you want to tell everybody how they can reach you?
I mean, what if I don't want them to reach me?
That's cool. Well, you know I don't have the Twitter, so they can't reach us during the show. So if anybody wants to shout out a topic there that they want to hear us banter about,
that's true.
How could they do that?
Twitter and YouTube comments, you're not checking those, are you?
YouTube, we got a commenter on there, MW99 Geek or MW2 Geek 99.
I'm surprised you're going on the internet. Congratulations. What's it like?
I learned it. I think it's here to stay.
Yeah, it might be around. I'm on Twitter at Bobby DeMuro, just my name. We'll check YouTube comments too, obviously, if you guys want to comment all week. And
because they can find us on YouTube and iTunes.
Yeah, YouTube, iTunes, hit subscribe. Anywhere, if you're listening or watching, hit subscribe. You can rate us if you're on iTunes, that kind of stuff. Wow. And if you're at home, you should tell us this week, because I'm advocating for this. If y'all want to see like a once a month wintertime Red Sox wrap, we can talk about free agents, trades, whatever offseason moves happen, big free agents that become available, hot stove stuff. So if you guys want to see like once every like 4 weeks, maybe like the first, I don't know, we can figure it out, but the first Tuesday of the month or something like that, do a big wrap of the previous month of Red Sox baseball, and then hey man, March rolls around and we're back.
Let us know in the comments section. I have a tendency to follow football in football season.
I'm down for a little baseball once a month. I don't know why you wouldn't. You know, personally, I'd do a daily show all winter. No, I'm just kidding.
You can always tickle that Red Sox itch, no question about it. So, oh yes, but looking back on the season, 78 and 84 didn't look like it was going to finish that well. You know, halfway through the season, especially after their that losing streak to start the second half, but they turned it around. A lot of good young players on this the baseball team that I hope are on the team next year, but as anything, new regime coming in, it might be out with the old and in with the new, which would be sad. But who would you like to see on this team next year? Who would you like to see gone?
I guess we'll start with the locks. I think the locks are David Ortiz, Pedroia. Yeah, I don't think he gets traded. I don't think they would trade him. I don't think there's even a market to trade him.
Nobody wants 30 and 100.
Yeah, no, it's not just that. Nobody wants that from a second baseman at that age with that money.
Oh, Pedroia.
Like you can get a cheaper second baseman who's going to do well enough. That's not a primary position. And he's not a bad deal right now for the Sox. It's not like he's an albatross hanging around their neck. Those two are going to come back. You're going to see guys like Porcello back because you got so much money sunk into that and made after the trade. You're going to see second-level players. You're going to see Castillo and people like that back, younger guys, Bogarts and Betts and all those obvious ones. You're probably going to see Josh Rutledge come back. I think he showed enough last year. Now, does he make a major league roster come spring training? Maybe not. It depends who comes in.
Yeah.
You're going to see Hanley at first. You're going to see Pablo at third. I don't think they're going to do very much, especially with the lineup. I don't think they're going to do anything significant unless they really surprise us. It's the pitching, specifically the rotation, that I'm the most interested in.
Right.
Because they don't need to add a lot, but I think Dombrowski's going to want to add a frontline guy. Maybe not even a traditional number one, but a big-time pitcher.
Yeah, and that's kind of like where it lies. In looking back at Dombrowski's, history, he's more apt to make a trade for that type of guy than go after him in free agency. And when you look at free agency, there's really kind of, the big names out there that everybody's talking about, Cueto and Price, but how we always talk about on the show about buying low and selling high. I mean, with Price finishing the year like he did, on fire for Toronto, 9-1, and potentially putting himself in the Cy Young talk for the American League, it might be he's a little too high right now. Yeah. And when I look at what he does in the postseason, he doesn't show up in the postseason. He doesn't have that postseason record.
It's that, and the other thing I think that the concern with any frontline starting pitcher, the Red Sox can do it. They've got the money to do it, and they've got the money to absorb it if it fails. But anytime you get a frontline starter, you're paying for 3, 4, 5 very good years, and then you're going to pay another 2 or 3 or 4 years where they're going to suck, but you got to eat it because that's the market right now.
Right.
You're going to give somebody 8 years. You're going to give somebody $250 million. Well, they're not going to be at the top of their game that long. You might lose a year to Tommy John. You might lose a year to something else. So you're eating that money. Can the Red Sox eat that money right now with the way that they are? Financially, probably. On the field, they're not one tick away from being a contender. If you're the Dodgers today, if you're the Dodgers whenever their season ends, you say, hey, we're going to sell out for Cueto or Price. We're going to re-sign Greinke because we feel we're that close to a World Series legitimately, and this guy will push us over the top. If you're the Red Sox, you might get lucky in like 2013. You might have a lucky season where you get hot and the right things come together, but it's not a given. And I think giving $250 million to something where you need more than just that,
right,
that's a risky proposition.
Well, I think that when you look back on the 2013 season, it's like, the right free agents were brought in.
Yeah.
These like high character guys that can bring a lot to the lineup for sure, but also bring a lot in terms of chemistry to the club. Now, for some reason, in 2012 and 2014, we didn't seem to do that.
Yeah.
In 2012, we got bailed out, obviously, by the Dodgers, so they took away our mistakes. And so now we have a Hanley and a Pablo situation, and nobody's going to take those off our hands unless we eat pretty much all their contract. What do you think the possibility is Hanley's in a Red Sox uniform starting spring training?
100%.
100%?
I think 100%. You would have to eat so much money for Hanley. Here's the thing. If you're going to trade Hanley or Pablo, maybe we've talked, you're an advocate of Pablo to the Padres because the Padres could use a hitter in the infield. And I get that.
I think I was Hanley.
Or Hanley. Okay, or Hanley.
Yeah.
But the problem now is, where do you play him? The Padres have outfielders and they're trying Will Myers at first base. So all of a sudden, Hanley may not have a shot there.
Well, I mean, third base.
Oh God!
But
here's the thing: either one of those guys, besides like the perfect situation, and even with that, you're going to eat a lot of money.
Yeah.
But besides the perfect situation, trade him to XYZ team, you're going to eat so much money, and then you're going to try to go get a frontline starter or even a Mike Leake who's going to command a pretty penny for what he does.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a second. You're paying out of both ends. Don't you still owe Adrian Gonzalez? No, this year's the last year you're paying Adrian Gonzalez. So at least there's that.
Really?
You're paying him 3.9 this year.
Oof.
But this is it. That ends now. But you owe so much money.
Ends now, Adrian.
You owe so much money to whatever buyout it is with your trade, whether it's Hanley or Sandoval, and you're going to try to go get a frontline starter. Forget it. You got to do one or the other. Now, Dombrowski could say, okay, I'm going to get rid of these two guys or one of these two guys, and I'm going to eat money, and I'm going to get prospects back, or I'm going to get your guy Tyson Ross. I'm going to get somebody like Tyson Ross back and whatever. Okay, but that means that 2016, you're probably not going to contend. You'll contend maybe a little bit better depending on who you return, but you're not going to be the team there. You're going to have to plan for 2017 because you're going to eat so much damn money.
I mean, I don't know where that factors in on the product of the field. I mean, because John Henry prints money, for God's sake.
I understand that, but I think when you get into an arms race with teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Nationals and some of these teams who clearly are already going to spend tons of money, where does it end? How far do you want to go?
Yeah. I don't want to go far.
Exactly.
I don't want to go to that seventh year for guys like Price and Cueto and guys like that. And even like a Zimmerman who, I think the Sherrington regime was a little more enamored with Zimmerman than Dombrowski is. But, so I don't see him in the mix. But I would like to see them maybe, buy low on some veteran guys like a Doug Fister who had a down year. I'd like for them to maybe take a look at Leak. That'd be nice. But some other free agent starters I was looking at that are kind of in a lower tier is like a Marco Estrada's out there. Mm-hmm. He had a 3.13 ERA and 181 innings pitched this year. So I don't think that the Sox had maybe one starter who put in 181.
I wouldn't even call that a lower tier though. I know it's the year of the pitcher, but that's a borderline elite starter.
Well, that's like probably what 1A tier.
That's you're gonna get a lot of money for that. When you said lower tier, I thought you might mean Kyle Kendrick.
Okay. Or like, what do you think it would take to get like a Kazmir?
That's a good question. I think Kazmir would still get a lot of money. There's just the market for some of these guys.
Money's fine.
The market for some of these guys.
Money's fine.
What is Kazmir's contract? Is he a free agent at the end of this year?
He's a free agent. So, okay. I mean, and he had 183 innings pitched this year with 3.1 ERA. I mean, if 3 years, $50 million gets it done with old Kazmir, I'd be apt to go in that direction where you're not. 7 years is too much of a commitment. Plus, like you say, it's like, don't let the market dictate you doing something you don't want to do just because you feel, okay, we went in without an ace last year. It was horrendous, but it was also kind of a tale of two seasons, I mean, the ERA of the pitching staff was 4.75 before the break, and after the break it was 3.99. So things got better, and things happened like when they changed the pitching coaches, there was, improvement there, It was just kind of a horrible, first couple months for them, but I mean, Estrada I like, but I like him probably more because it's also weakening a team in the division,
That's true.
So
yeah, and he's probably going to leave. I mean, I shouldn't say probably. He may very well leave there anyways. Yeah. So even if it doesn't come to Boston, he still may weaken the team by going to Texas, Anaheim. I mean, you pick your place.
They got to save that money to go after Price.
Yeah,
and then he becomes a jilted incumbent. And he's like, he's like, all right, I'm going to go to the Red Sox for 75 cents.
But your whole thing with David Price the whole time has been Chicago. He's going to be a Cub.
I think he's going to be a Cub, but I think there's going to be a lineup for him. I think the Yanks are going to be in on him. I think the Sox are going to be in on him, but I wouldn't go more than 5 years.
Yeah,
and someone will give him 7.
That's the thing about Price and Cueto and even Mike Leake. Those 3 guys are not old. They've still got a lot of good years in them, but they're not young. They're not reaching free agency at 25. Those guys are all 28, 29, 30 and above. So you're not 7 years. You get a 25-year-old at free agency, or the Nationals in a very different situation are going to come up with Bryce Harper pretty soon. Well, you'd give him a 75-year contract. The dude's 21 years old.
Right.
But when you're 30 and you're a pitcher, that's a different conversation. So do you? Here's my question, I guess. Would you overpay in money, in dollars per year, if it meant shorter years? Would you give Price, I don't know, I'm just spitballing, but would you give Price $27 million a year for 5 years versus giving him, $22 million a year for 7 years? Forget about the total value, the average annual value.
I think I would.
Yeah,
I would do that. Inflate, and after they lowballed Lester, they tried to do that where he was like shorter and make it up on money, but they weren't going to get into the stratosphere that Chicago went in order to get him. But anyways, and I couldn't help but think in that Cubs Cardinals game 1, Lester versus Lackey, and it was a pitcher's duel. What might have been with our 015 season?
Yeah,
had it been a Lester Lackey, Miley, Erod, Owens staff instead of putting in Porcello and Joe Kelly for those guys. Joe
Kelly did okay for most of the season.
That's a guy that I think could go in a deal.
Yeah, definitely.
Because he has value. I mean, he had that kind of up and down deal, which he started off horrendously, kind of made his own bed by predicting a Cy Young finish. But once he kind of came back off that DL stint, and I forget, was he the biceps or that was Porcello, I think. But Kelly, it seemed like he just needed to get down there and get himself right, mix in more off-speed stuff, and therefore making his fastball that much better. He was doing things that hadn't been done since Pedro Martinez. I mean, that stretch of 7 wins, he had an ERA under 3 or under 2 for that stretch. So he was impressive in that regard. And he's coming in. He's just kind of getting into his arbitration years.
He goes to arbitration for 2016. So if he sticks around, he's going to get, he made what, $600,000 this year. He's going to get a big raise, but he's not going to make $10 million. This is obviously a guy, you might pay him a couple million depending on his year last year.
Right.
But that's really, really manageable for a guy. If he gives you 30 starts at what he does, it's pretty damn good.
That's a guy I think that can come back and maybe win 15 games and have an ERA in the mid-threes. I mean, I like the guy. And so it would be kind of, it's almost like a sell low, sell high like mix up on him because he's kind of low in a certain sense because he had, when you look at his season as a whole, it was kind of sad. But then he went on that stretch where, maybe this guy is the guy. So I think other teams are going to be looking to buy low on him and maybe not offer you what you should get for a guy that's going to be making the manageable contract that he is going to be making over the next few years.
And I think overall he pitched a little bit better than his final numbers, are going to indicate. The interesting thing to me with Dombrowski and the way that Dombrowski works in bringing in new guys, his guys, trades or free agency, not developing players as much, although that wasn't true in Florida when he started, 25 years ago. But in Detroit, this certainly was, bringing in free agents. The Sox, their top 40 on the payroll, they have 11 guys who the team acquired through the draft or amateur free agency, and the other 39 were acquired via trades or
29.
Major League free, or 29 were acquired via trades or Major League free agency. I'm not asking for a Cardinals, system here where everybody comes up through the thing and you only occasionally go get a Brandon Moss or a Matt Holliday, but
I am.
Do the Sox decimate the farm system? Are you going to see Dombrowski trade away everybody in this very strong farm system and go for broke on getting guys who can win right now, and they're going to do what the Padres tried to do and say, screw the farm and screw the future, it's time to win?
Well, I think what he's after is going to be a front-of-the-line starter that's, in his mid-20s, that's, somewhat controllable, so we can see him for a few years underneath, in the Boston climate, and when they're still under a manageable number, as opposed to Rick Porcello, who comes in and he wasn't under. We extended him without even seeing him throw a pitch.
Yeah.
But so I think he's going to be going after those guys like Sonny Gray if Billy Beane feels like he's not going to sign him over the next thing. Tyson Ross if AJ Preller wants to blow it up. Carrasco from the Indians was dangled out there. Let's see how much they want to implode the Washington Nationals. Do they want to give us Steven Strasburg?
It's funny, you talk about buying low, though. Sonny Gray and Carrasco are not buying low.
That's true.
Tyson Ross really isn't even buying low. Strasburg might be. I can agree with you on Strasburg. At least relative to the rest of that national staff, Strasburg is relatively a buy low guy. Mm. What about a buy low in San Diego instead of Ross? Would you take Andrew Cashner? Had an ugly win-loss year, but wins and losses do not tell a story of a pitcher. I'm sorry. Yeah. Would you be interested in a guy like that?
I like Cashner. Is he? What's his contract status?
I think he's still under arbitration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I like him. The few times I have seen him pitch, he's a lanky guy that throws hard. I like those guys.
That's the thing. How you just stack up guys who throw 95 miles an hour? Like I hate to oversimplify it. It takes more than that.
Right.
But the more of these power starting arms you have, look at the better chance you have.
Exactly.
Look at some of these teams. Look at some of these playoff teams. Look at the radar gun in some of these playoff games. And I know it's so much more than the radar gun, but that's part of it. You have so many power arms you just throw out there again and again and again.
Dude, Syndergaard.
It's unbelievable.
Insane. A starter throwing 100.
It's
insane.
Unbelievable.
So, that's why you have to get those guys, that's kind of where we're heading, and to have guys around that, are throwing 91, 93, that doesn't cut the mustard anymore, that's...
Would you, in any trade, whether it's for a starting pitcher or something else, maybe something else they feel they need that we don't identify, would you piece together Pablo or Hanley with a couple prospects, with a Manuel Margot, with a Christian Vasquez? Do you say, hey, we'll eat part of Hanley, but not as much as we would have, because we're going to give you these two very, very good prospects too?
That's what they're going to have to do. If they're going to get someone to take Hanley, they're going to have to eat some money and also, get them to take some of the money by washing it down with prospects. I'd get rid of Margot. I love Betts. I think he should be our center fielder for the next 10 years. The kid's incredible. But I would get rid of Margot. I wouldn't hesitate to deal him. Devers, I'm a little bit... I kind of like Devers, but I would part with him. I want to keep... Why anybody would even mention Betts and Bogarts anymore is if you could try and get them off the Red Sox, that's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So those two guys, and I'd like to... I know how you think I'm insane for this, but I'd like to go into the season with both the catches. I know Hannigan...
Oh, I agree with you on that. I thought you were going to say Jackie Bradley Jr.
Well, if we could sell high on Jackie on his August, then by all means... I would think about that. But this guy could be the best defensive outfielder there has ever been in the game. And when you have somebody who could be the best at something, do you get rid of that? I mean, he would have to, bring back that front of the line guy.
Okay. I mean, I'll disagree
in
with
a
you.
package, obviously.
Yeah, I'll disagree with you top to bottom on anything good about Jackie Bradley, and you know how I feel about him, and I've made my words clear about Mr. JBJ.
Okay.
But let's say he is the best center field defender in the history of all of baseball, which is your contention, half serious.
Yeah.
We have to identify what this team and what Major League Baseball, where it's going right now. Defense is important. Look at the Kansas City Royals last year. Defense is very, very important for teams. But teams hit home runs. They play for the long ball. Nobody bunts. Nobody steals. Nobody focuses on D anymore. It's power pitchers, power hitters. So is his phenomenal defense so important that you wouldn't return, in a hypothetical package deal, a frontline power pitcher or some kind of frontline power hitter to win today? I just worry that his great defense, that's wonderful, but if he doesn't hit come next July and he's hitting 204 with 200 strikeouts, does his defense do enough to not stand out in the lineup?
Well, I mean, I think it does. The reason why I'm getting a little bit alarmed on Bradley is because he is going to have those gaps where we're just depending on his defense and we're just going to look at the other way on his hitting. But that maybe we don't have the bats around to make up for that on his little stretch. Because if Sandoval doesn't hit like he did this year, that's kind of a hole at third base. And first base is a circus, I mean, initially I was like, okay, let's get somebody to take Hanley off our hands at all costs this offseason. But then I looked at kind of the free agents available for like a first base, because I don't want to just hand the keys to the castle, to Travis Shaw and be like, first base is yours. I'd like to bring in a guy that puts some heat on him and maybe he's in a platoon situation. But the free agent guys out there didn't really blow my skirt up. Chris Davis, going to cost too much money.
Cost a ton of money. I'll give you one right now that you're not looking at, Justin Morneau.
I look at him.
All right. I'm saying the Rockies are not going to pick up his options. If they did, it'd be a colossal mistake. That's a guy for like a 1-year deal. He'd probably make like $6-7 million. He's got like a $9 million option. Missed a ton of time with the concussion this year. Health is a concern, but for $6 or $7 million bucks. He's another left-handed hitter, but phenomenal defense.
Can hook a few around the pesky pole.
Yeah,
dude, I like Morneau. That's the one guy. But with concussions and stuff like that, it's like the best ability is availability. And with him, the past couple of years with that concussion, it really.
But to finish the JBJ thought, because it relates to this too, it sounds like you're describing in Jackie Bradley Jr. a National League platoon player. A guy who comes in for defensive purposes, a Sean Rodriguez in Pittsburgh, a guy who comes in the 7th inning for defensive purposes, wild card play-in game aside. In an ideal world, that's when Sean Rodriguez is coming into games, right? It's that kind of thing for JBJ. Let him start once a week in, platooning across the outfield, and let him come in either as a pinch runner or defensively in the 7th inning every night.
Negative. I think this guy can be a regular for somebody. Maybe it's not a team that is like in the spotlight like the Boston Red Sox or the New York Yankees, but a lesser market team should just say, hey, listen, we're going to throw this guy in the 9-hole, 8-hole, whatever, and, just allow him to play his defense. And, the guy saves games, just with his defense. So even if his offense isn't there, and I know it's frustrating to look. I mean, he finished the year on 11 for 80 slump, So after his Ruthian August, where between August 9th and September 7th, he slashed 446 with a 489 on base and a 952 OPS with 7 home runs in 90 plate appearances. He followed that up by going the rest of the way, slashing 138, 247 on base, 263 with 2 home runs in 94 plate appearances.
And it averaged out to an average season.
249, baby.
Wow.
But, if that guy can hit 240 in the bigs, 250 in the bigs, he's worth it just for defense.
I hate to say this. I really hate to say this. But you're describing a guy who might actually do well in Colorado. A guy in a very offensive environment, huge gaps. So offensively, he's going to catch a break here and there with balls that fall. And defensively, he's going to cover gaps if he's as good defensively as you believe he is.
Yeah.
The Rockies are going to trade some outfielders this winter.
Maybe,
I hate to say it.
Maybe we bring over Chicago. Who knows?
I hate to say it, but that's the kind of place where he would have to fit anywhere that could that could promote his defensive strengths with a huge outfield that he can cover that few other guys can, and any good hitter's environment. Would he work in like a Philadelphia that's a better hitter's environment, or like in Arizona, somewhere where he's gonna the cold streaks that he's gonna hit no matter what, that can be softened a little bit by the fact that he plays in such a good hitter's park.
Yeah. And I was thinking that these cold streaks would be a lot easier to swallow and stuff. Where back in August when Rusty Castillo was hitting 338 for August, but then after that, everybody's just didn't throw him a fastball the rest of the way, and it looks like he can't hit. So I'm a little bit alarmed on him.
I'm not worried at all on him. I love him.
Okay.
I think he's got all the tools. I think he's incredibly young. I know you're paying him more than you would a guy his age because of
that
the Cuban
incredibly
free agency
young.
thing.
He's like 28.
Young in major league years. He's still undeveloped at the bigs.
No question.
I like him a lot. I think he's like in that same mold as like Starling Marte in Pittsburgh. Yasiel Puig, not quite that good, although Puig had a down year this year, so who knows. But that big arm, big bat, athletic guy, big guy. I like him a lot. Now, if he has another year next year where he proves he can't hit a curveball or he struggles a lot, well, maybe we'll look at it differently. But him, I like Rusney Castillo a lot.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm still kind of on board unless we get bowled away in the offseason with the deal that JBJ has to be in, with starting with that defensive outfield. You know, I do like bringing a little bit of an insurance policy in. You know how much I love Alejandro Diaz, and he's going to be available.
Great guy.
If he enjoyed his time in Boston that much, wants to come back and start the year as a fourth outfielder. I think we're going to get him 50 games.
So are you saying Rusney and right, Betts in center, JBJ in left?
I would say Rusney's going to be the left fielder now.
And JBJ in right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As much I wanted Castillo in right, JBJ in center, and Betts in left. But oddly enough, that was the only pairing they did not try at the end of the year. Does
Bradley have a strong enough arm in right field to do what he needs to do?
Bradley?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He's got a plus arm.
Okay.
Of all three of those guys, I think he is, I bet he's got the best arm.
That's I guess just intuitively I just would have imagined it's Castillo, but maybe that's because my preconception of him is the Puig, Marte, vein.
Absolutely,
so, yeah.
Absolutely. And Castillo's arm's good too.
Yeah.
What I like about all these guys is that they don't rush it. I mean, they're quick with getting it in, but they're all very accurate, which is huge. Especially if you play in left field in Fenway, where accuracy is the key. You're not really throwing it, too far. So. But, I'm excited about that. Looking forward. So third base, I mean, it's going to probably be Pablo next year. I mean, otherwise we'll have to sell incredibly low, and we'll just have to eat his whole contract, and then he'll go hit 300 for somebody next year.
Yeah.
So, and I do know we talked about this a little bit last week or I made the allegation that there is worse things to do than standing pat. Like going out and giving Johnny Cueto 7 years, $200 million. That would be bad. But if we can get a young starter and not have to get rid of too much of the farm, then yes, we should do that. But if we just tinker with the bullpen and bring back a pretty similar roster, and we have like 9 guys that could take the ball, vying for like 5 positions, it's like I have a pretty good feeling about it, and then it gives you an idea where a little bit more of what you need. If you are a contender, if you're going to be a buyer or seller at the deadline, maybe you can accumulate some more assets, go after, that frontline starter again the next offseason, or even better, you can just get to fleece somebody at the deadline,
Or even better, you have Eddie Rodriguez and or Henry Owens become your own damn frontline starter.
Boom.
That's the plan.
That would be huge.
But here's
I think Owens goes in any deal, but
yeah, that's maybe. Rodriguez probably got to stay. I think you got to keep him at this point.
I would love to keep Rodriguez. But people are going to ask for him.
They are, but he's shown too much. Owens hasn't shown big league success yet. Not his fault. He's really young. He had, 10 career starts, something like that. I mean, come on. Of course he hasn't. But if you had to keep one of the two, I think you got to keep Erod.
Definitely.
But you look at this team as a whole. So they're 6 games under 500 this year, finished, 15 out of first place when Toronto got hot. That's a little deceiving. Toronto had a ridiculous second half, although Boston did, well in the second half too. But you take away that mid-season, whatever it was, losing 15 out of whatever slump.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, let's say we do average there, and I know you can't go back, the losses are losses. You can't go back in time.
Yeah.
But if they did average there, all of a sudden this is a 81 and 81-ish team, and then from there you're looking to pick up how many wins for next year?
Yeah.
6-7 wins, and you're in the conversation.
Yeah.
Now 6 wins is a lot of wins. You're going to have to make changes, but you're not as far away as, arguably, of all the last place teams, you're probably the closest last place team in all of baseball.
No question.
So
no question.
It could be a lot worse unless you say Seattle. Seattle will have a better year next year. I don't know if they ended up. No, I guess Oakland finished in last, so that's a bad example. But Seattle had a bad year. But I think you're the best of the 6 division last place teams. You're the closest. Now next year, could the Blue Jays and Yankees both rip off 92 wins? I mean, sure, I guess. You could win 85 and not even be in the hunt like what happened in the NL Central. Sure, but I think you're closer than almost anybody else in the basement.
If the Jays can't retain Price, I see them taking a step back.
It depends, though. It depends who else they bring in as a starter and what they can do to retain offense. Because they've got some of these guys. They have such a great offense. But, between Donaldson and Tulo, they're going to keep those guys. I think they start looking around to see if they can get rid of Encarnacion, Joey Bats, these second-level, Brett Laurie, I don't know, these second-level guys who are like, hey, how many more good years do they have? Do we sell high on them to try to get a big return?
Well, they already lost Brett Laurie in the Josh Donaldson deal, so that worked out real good for them. But, the other guys definitely – I looked today, Encarnacion actually has a club option for $10 million. That's a bargain.
That is a bargain.
Oh, man.
But do you? Then that's the thing. Do you put through the option, say, hey, you're coming back whenever they have to do it in December, and then come February 15th, they say, hey, bud, you've been traded to XYZ. We got 2 young pitchers.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, and who knows if you just keep him through the first half of the season, somebody needs a bat at the break. He's a pretty good rental bat to be able to pick up. A little fragile, but Erod's got to be the guy that stays in. 15 of his 21 starts this year gave up 2 earned runs or less. Sick. And Betts was 7th in the AL. I know you appreciate this in WAR with a 6.
There you go. That's
Boom.
all you need.
Boom.
Who's WAR? Baseball Reference or Fangraphs?
Oh man.
Because it makes a difference.
It does.
You were so proud of citing a sabermetric, and then I came back with like a simple question. You were like, damn it.
Yep. I got something else for you, though. But, the bane of my existence this year, and, with most teams, it is the bullpen and how horrible it is. And just a little something, they were 26th in ERA for the year, 4.25.
Ooh.
29th in XFIP, 4.36.
XFIP, for folks at home, if you're not familiar,
expected fielding independent pitching
is basically almost like ERA, but they're trying to account for park factors. So Fenway, how offensive of a park it is. When you go to Coors Field, your runs count differently than when you go to Marlins Park or Dodger Stadium.
Right.
So XFIP for sabermetric people is a little more indicative of a true number to put on a season than ERA. So they're
more so than FIP, just straight up FIP.
Well, that's more so than ERA. So if their ERA was 26th, you said, and their XFIP is 29th, they actually pitched a little bit worse than their basic numbers.
Right.
So
they're also completely last in regular FIP, 4.64.
Behind the Rockies bullpen,
and last in FWAR. Minus 1.5.
So Fangraphs, that's a Fangraphs one. Yeah. So all the sabermetrics have the Red Sox bullpen as being atrocious.
Yes. So here's how you fix it. Koji and Tazawa, they stay. Yeah. But we obviously know we have been overworking these dudes for their tenure with the Red Sox. So that has to be quelled. We have to bring someone in here who's a 9th or an 8th inning guy. I'm looking at the free agents. How about going hard after a Tyler Clippett? That's a guy who's pitched some in the 9th, pitched some in the 8th, can come in and support both those things. I like that. Another guy I like, Tony Sipp. Lefty.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking with the Astros, they have a lot of young guys there. Altuve, he's probably coming up on another contract soon. They're going to want to buy out the arbitration years on a Correa pretty soon, and some of those guys, some of those pitches. So that might be a piece that just kind of slips away, and he's effective versus righties and lefties. I really like him. So I would like for them to go after those guys and not worry too much about the frontline starter and see how it shakes out. And then maybe, there's a team that is just out there wanting to be fleeced at the deadline. That'll give us, a front of the line start.
What about? I got another one for you, another Rockies one, but it's just at the top of my head. John Axford. John Axford's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. Rockies might re-sign him, but he's going to get a chance to test the market.
Yeah.
And he's not shy about moving. He's played for a lot of different clubs already. How about John Axford for a year? He had 2 horrible weeks in Colorado, so his numbers are pedestrian.
Yeah.
But if you take away those 2 weeks, and I know you can't, but if you take away a couple of those outings, you got a really good reliever.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about relievers, too. When you're looking at relievers, when you're looking at them in the offseason, this is my thing with them. Even with starters, but with relievers, when you pitch in 65 games, take their 2 or 3 worst games of the year and throw them out. Right. And just say every reliever is going to have them. So if we were to take away the 2 worst games from every free agent reliever on the list, what numbers are we left with? Because there's going to be a day where a reliever goes out there, gives up 4 hits in a row. The manager says, my bullpen's wasted. You got to wear it. And he gives up 6 runs in a third of an inning.
Right.
That destroys these guys' numbers, but it doesn't mean they had a bad year.
Right.
So you come away and say, oh, well, his ERA was 3.98. That's not dominant for a reliever. We'll take away 1 or 2 terrible outings, and his ERA is 2.5.
Yeah,
that's a lot more attractive. And again, I mean, you can't take him away. He's going to have him. Whoever it is, going to have him next year in Boston too. But at least you get a better idea of who the reliever is versus, oh, well, he had 1 bad game. Screw his numbers.
Yeah,
not worth going after.
Well, as long as his numbers keep his price down, that's fine.
Well,
it's about finding those diamonds in the rough.
That's true too, and maybe it ends up helping you.
Yeah.
Well, his ERA was 4.2, so we're not going to pay $8 million. We'll pay $5 million, and they're like, okay.
Yeah. Stat I like when looking for relievers is runners stranded.
Yeah.
And a guy who led the majors in runners stranding, guy left-handed pitcher Cesar Ramos from the Angels.
Wow.
So I wouldn't mind maybe going after him. He made 1.3 last year, so. Tony Sipp made 2.4 last year. Let's go ahead and bolster this bullpen.
Yeah.
And I think it can cure a lot of ails,
I also think you want to look at strikeout percentage and batting average against. Do these guys miss bats? And that goes back to runner stranded. When there's 2 guys on base, you come in the 8th.
Right.
You can't always have the ground out. Sometimes you have to get the strikeout. Can you get the strikeout?
Right. We have been kind of just looking forward all towards last year, but just to kind of put a button on this season, who was impressive to you if we had to give out, end of the year awards?
For Cy Young, or,
Cy
Red
Young
Sox,
of the Red Sox?
Cy Young. for Red Sox most valuable pitcher, where we won't even denigrate the award with a name.
Thank you.
God, I think you're going to kill me for this one.
Okay.
But Erod's close, but what if Wade Miley?
Boom. We're in agreement.
I mean, Wade Miley did. Here's the thing about Wade Miley, and it's the bigotry of low expectations. The soft bigotry of low expectations is what I call it. But Wade Miley did not terribly. So Wade Miley, in a perfect world for a good team, is like that 4th or 5th starter who goes out every 5th day and is going to give you a chance to win, and he'll blow up occasionally or whatever. But at the end of the year, on a sub 500 last place team, he goes 11-11, gives you almost 200 innings. That's a really valuable season. Now, it would have been better on a winning team where he was a 5th starter just wearing it every 5th day. But on this team?
Yeah. No, I like him. I mean, because he, like nobody else, he came as advertised.
Yeah.
The advertisement was not that sexy.
But he had some rough times. Didn't he fight with Farrell on the bench this year?
Sure.
Started the year pretty badly, came back, ended it pretty strong. Wade Miley, I think you bring him in next year if you get a frontline starter or 2 pretty good starters and you say, hey, dude, you're our number 4, number 5. Do what you did last year, again this year, and life will be great.
Absolutely. 193.2 innings pitched. Led the team, obviously, with that. And his ERA was 4.46, so he had some up downs, but his FIP 3.81, so that says that he's pitching better.
Wade Miley's an example. He might be pitching better relative to the park he's pitching in than his ERA suggests, is what that is. Mm-hmm. Also, almost 2.5 strikeouts per walk. He doesn't strike out a ton of guys, but he's not walking a lot of guys.
Right.
So, what more do you want from a guy like that? Giving up about a hit an inning, that's pretty damn good for a starter.
Yep.
I mean, we're not talking about David Price here. We're not talking about Zach Greinke. We're talking about an average big league starter, I think, and again, the soft bigotry of low expectations.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. Who's your... Go ahead.
Yeah, no, please go ahead.
I was going to say, who's your MVP? Let's just get right to it. I know who you're going to say.
Well, is there a most improved award?
Yeah, let's do both. Let's do most improved.
Okay.
We'll do, we'll do most improved, an MVP, and a reliever of the year.
Oh, boy. And the biggest surprise?
Sure.
Okay. So
Our biggest surprise and most improved different?
My most improved would be Bogarts.
Okay.
Just because, he improved his hitting ridiculously. I mean, the guy's second in the AL in batting, second in hits. It looks like a bona fide superstar. You saw a little bit of the power maybe coming towards the end of the year too, which I'm really excited about. And his defense really was the big thing, because he was kind of like looking like a guy that, maybe this guy's going to be better as a third baseman. Yeah. And he just really took leaps and bounds. Now I would say that, he's one of the top 2 or 3 defensive shortstops in the American League. I love the kid. He's unbelievable.
He had a phenomenal season. I'd like him to walk a little bit more. I'd like him to get on base a little bit better. If you're going to hit 320 and get on base only at a 355 clip, I mean, listen to what I'm complaining about. But you want to get on base maybe like 380 or 390 if you're going to hit 320.
Right.
But dude hitting 320 all year, you don't have a lot to bitch about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you got to agree with that, most improved.
I would agree with that. I think you could also, I don't know if you consider it most improved, but what about Mookie Betts, just for another young guy developing every day? He overcame the concussion situation real fast, too. Still played 145 games. Didn't miss a lot of time. Didn't seem like he missed a beat on that. I don't think he compares to Bogarts, but I think with Betts, you're like, that's another guy who's on the right track record to develop into a major leaguer.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty much there. Yeah. I mean, he's my MVP, I think.
Wow.
I mean, go with him over Ortiz, because Papi, I mean, it's what you expect, and I was a little bummed that he didn't hit for the first 6 weeks of the season, 7 weeks of the season. But once he did, he obviously was crushing it. But we need him to be consistent for all through, especially if we're going to be, through all 6 months, if we're going to be relying on young players to kind of come in, and we're going to have their ups and downs. But, I mean, dude, Betts was incredible. I mean, he's got a higher OPS than Bogarts. He's got more extra base hits, like 68 to 55, I think. And, he hit 290, 291. Yeah. With 18 bombs, 21, he's just kind of finding himself, but he was still almost a 20-20 guy. And he's looking like he's going to be a perennial 25 guy.
And he hit 42 doubles.
Yeah.
That's what about most disappointing?
I would have to say Pablo.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you might have said Mike Napoli.
Wow.
Listen, my pick for most disappointing.
Still in the playoffs.
And it's not his fault. Is Clay Buchholz. Not his fault. He got injured. You can't be mad at him. I mean, it happens. That's baseball. But he was throwing the ball pretty well, especially relative to what the rotation ended up doing all year. And they would not have made the playoffs if he were healthy and on point all year. Yeah. But it would have been a little bit of a different season. They might have been a plus 500 team. Yeah. Like, with him anchoring the rotation is different than Porcello's disaster year and Wade Miley's, low expectations year. It's disappointing that he missed, 15, 18 turns in the rotation.
Yeah. And who would you like for, relief pitcher of the year?
I mean, isn't it obvious?
It's got to be.
It's Koji.
It's got Koji.
Or Tommy Lane.
Oh my.
No, it's Koji.
I don't mind seeing Tommy Lane back next year, but he is just a lefty specialist.
He is.
Righties rake him.
He did better, I think, than maybe we thought he was going to do as a lefty specialist. But no, it's Koji as reliever of the year. Alexi Ogando was surprising considering his history, but he's nothing you can't replace very easily on a free agent market.
He won't be with the club next year, I wouldn't say. But okay, and how about biggest surprise? I got to go Travis Shaw on that one.
Yeah, probably Travis Shaw.
I mean, the guy was his OPS was 670 in Pawtucket.
The other one, I'll say this. What about Eddie Rodriguez? Only because he's so young. A lot of these young pitchers, there's so much pressure on these guys. There's so much focus on these guys. Every team has so-and-so's going to save our rotation. So-and-so, 19-year-old kid's a stud. He's going to throw 230 innings a year. Very rarely do they turn out like Clayton Kershaw. Very rarely do they become that guy. Right. Or if they do what Jake Arrieta did, which is take years to develop into that guy.
That's what I'm hoping is happening with Kelly.
Well, and that's the thing. And that might be what happened with Kelly. But with Erod, I'm looking at him after last year. I'm looking at him after being traded from Baltimore. And I'm saying, let's see what we got with this guy. And we went from let's see what we got with this guy to every fifth day, it's like, I know what I'm going to get. We're going to win a game today. Yeah. Or like you said, we're going to give up 2 earned runs or less in how many of his 16 of his 21 starts?
Yeah, 21.
What more, that's giving your team a chance to win. And for that guy at this stage of his development, is pretty exciting.
Yeah, double-digit wins.
Exciting.
I mean, the kid was killer.
Double-digit wins. I probably want to see him strike out a few more guys for who he is. But, at this point, it's like the process is there. The development is there. Hopefully he doesn't take a step back next year when teams can scout him 1 year better. Yeah. That's the challenge. But he can also scout hitters 1 year better. Yeah. I think you got to be pretty excited about him. You might have, next year's probably not the year. You still need that number one guy. But you're going to have, in 2 or 3 years, another number one in Erod, I think.
Who knows? Hopefully he'll come along. It seems like these young guys have turned it on real quick. The Sonny Grays, it didn't take him 2 or 3 years.
You're the pitcher, man.
So we'll see.
Decade of the pitcher. This is the pitcher's era.
2016 is going to be a lot brighter, friends, than 2015 for the Boston Red Sox. That we can agree on, I would hope. Do you want to tee up your Dodgers show? Or
Yeah, come on. Are we done here? Is this it?
I think we have to wrap it up.
That's it for the Red Sox this year.
That's it for the Red Sox season. I mean, keep checking back if we do these monthly updates for a little hot stove during the winter time, but you might have to look out for me on Patriots Rap 360. He's Bobby DeMuro. You want to tell him where to find you on Twitter?
Don't you dare say free Tom Brady ever again.
Oh boy, he's already free.
On Twitter at Bobby DeMuro. Follow me actually, because we will talk if we do these once a month Red Sox shows. This is where you'll get it.
Absolutely.
And if you're a baseball fan, if you're not already, Dodgers Rap starts in about 10 minutes, and we'll be doing the Dodgers throughout the playoffs. So if you want to talk National League baseball with us, go there.
There you go. Thanks, guys. Have a good offseason. Go Sox.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.